Karen sued me for noise. Turns out, the helicopter was DoD contracted and she lost the case fast. Have you ever had a neighbor who seemed to make it their life's mission to ruin your peace? For Jake Miller, that neighbor was Karen Whitmore, a woman whose complaints about his helicopter training business turned a quiet rural town into a battleground of pride, principle, and deafening rotor blades. Jake had always been a man of the skies. A retired Air Force pilot, he'd settled in the rolling hills of Willow Creek, Texas, to start a small helicopter training school in 2018. His property, a sprawling 50 acres dotted with oak trees, was perfect for low-altitude flight practice. The business was modest but growing, catering to aspiring pilots and a few Department of Defense contracts for specialized training. The hum of his Bell 206 helicopter was a familiar sound to most neighbors, who either didn't mind or saw it as a badge of local pride. But not Karen. From the moment she moved into the quaint farmhouse a half-mile away in early 2020, she declared war on the noise. Karen's first salvo came in the form of a furious knock on Jake's door, her face flushed with indignation. "Your helicopter is ruining my life," she shrieked, waving a decibel meter like a weapon. She claimed the noise was disrupting her peaceful country living, scaring her prized alpacas, and making it impossible to enjoy her morning yoga. Jake, calm and weathered from years of high-stakes missions, offered an apology and explained that his flights were limited to daytime hours and followed strict FAA guidelines. But Karen wasn't having it. "I'll sue you into the ground," she vowed, storming off. Jake chuckled, thinking it was just hot air. He was wrong. Within weeks, Karen filed a nuisance lawsuit, claiming Jake's helicopter operations were a public disturbance and demanding $500,000 in damages plus an injunction to shut down his business entirely. The town buzzed with gossip. Some sided with Karen, annoyed by the occasional roar of rotors, but most backed Jake, a local hero who'd served his country and now employed a dozen people. The lawsuit felt personal, vindictive even, and Jake wasn't about to let Karen bully him out of his livelihood. He hired a sharp attorney, Emily Torres, and prepared to fight back. The truth began to unravel in court, and it was more damning than Karen could have imagined. Emily dug into Jake's operations and discovered that a significant portion of his flights were contracted by the Department of Defense for training special operations pilots. These weren't joyrides. They were federally mandated missions, governed by strict regulations and conducted in Class D airspace, where the FAA held ultimate authority. Emily presented evidence that Jake's flight paths complied with federal law, and she cited a U.S. Supreme Court ruling that preempted local attempts to regulate aircraft noise through flight path restrictions. Karen's case, built on the idea that Jake was recklessly disturbing the peace, started to crumble. But the real twist came from an unexpected source. Karen's own neighbor, Old Man Jenkins, a grizzled farmer who'd lived in Willow Creek for 70 years. Jenkins had no love for Karen's constant complaints, once called the sheriff on him for his rooster crowing at dawn. During a deposition, Jenkins revealed he'd kept a log of Jake's helicopter activity since 2018, noting that flights were sporadic and mostly confined to weekdays. More importantly, he testified that Karen had bragged about wanting to make a quick buck by suing Jake, hoping to force him to settle out of court. Jenkins' log and testimony painted Karen as an opportunist, not a victim, and the courtroom buzzed with murmurs when he dropped that bombshell. Emily seized the moment, arguing that Karen's lawsuit was less about noise and more about a personal vendetta fueled by greed. The courtroom showdown was electric. Karen took the stand, her voice quivering with rehearsed outrage as she described the trauma of hearing helicopters while trying to meditate. Emily, cool and precise, dismantled her claims. She presented noise studies showing Jake's operations fell well within acceptable decibel levels for rural areas. She also introduced DoD contracts proving the flights were critical to national security, making Karen's demand for an injunction legally untenable. When Emily pressed Karen about Jenkins' testimony, Karen's composure cracked. She stammered, claiming Jenkins was senile and lying, but the judge wasn't buying it. The gallery could feel the tide turning, and Karen's lawyer, a nervous young man out of his depth, looked like he wanted to disappear. Karen's case collapsed faster than a poorly built house of cards. The judge, A no-nonsense Texan named Clara Holt ruled in Jake's favor in record time, citing federal preemption and dismissing Karen's claims as baseless. She didn't stop there. In a rare move, Judge Holt ordered Karen to pay Jake's legal fees, calling her lawsuit frivolous and a waste of the court's resources. The courtroom erupted in gasps, and Karen's face turned ashen. Jake, ever the stoic pilot, simply nodded, but inside, he felt a surge of vindication. The town celebrated his victory, with neighbors throwing a barbecue at his hangar, complete with a mock Karen flyover, where kids flew toy helicopters overhead. The fallout for Karen was brutal. Her reputation in Willow Creek tanked. The same neighbors she'd rallied to her cause now saw her as a scheming outsider who tried to ruin a local business for profit. Her alpacas, ironically, seemed unbothered by the helicopters, grazing contentedly as Jake's business thrived. Karen put her farmhouse up for sale 6 months later, unable to handle the whispers and cold shoulders. She moved to a condo in the city, where, rumor has it, she now complains about traffic noise. Jake's story spread beyond Willow Creek, inspiring others who'd faced similar battles against entitled complainers. His training school grew, securing more DoD contracts and even earning a commendation from the local mayor for boosting the economy. At the barbecue, Jake raised a glass to his neighbors, his voice steady but warm. "Here's to keeping the skies open and the Karens at bay," he said, drawing cheers. He turned a petty dispute into a triumph of resilience, proving that sometimes the truth flies higher than any helicopter. What do you think? Was Karen's lawsuit a fair fight for her peace? Or did she get what she deserved for trying to exploit a small business? Share your thoughts. I'd love to hear where you stand on this clash of neighborly rights and wrongs.